Bonsoir, hello, welcome back to our puzzle series, and today we'll be playing the puzzle from 61 to 80. So those are checkmate in 3, and you can in the side chat write your solution, and we'll analyze this one. So this one was the last puzzle we stopped on last week, sorry, no, 2 weeks ago. Last week I wasn't there. And so the solution was to notice that the elephant here is giving a great influence, so removing the defender and now simply breaking in with the rook, since this square is control on this one, and that's how we win. And let's go for the next one, so puzzle 61, and that's 1 minute and 40 seconds to try to guess. So not so much pieces for red, so that shouldn't be too hard to find and try to observe the different possibilities to lead to the solution. Yeah, so here only 3 moves that works to check the king. That's with the pawn, with the rook. If rook takes rook, king takes rook, and there's nothing left. If you try this, we are able to grab the rook since the king is not there, but once the cannon goes there, since the pawn does not take backward, there's nothing to do. If we had something on that file, maybe, but here that's not on the spot. So the idea is also to isolate the king for the rook from the rook, take the rook, and now this pawn is giving us support, so we can checkmate or with the pawn or with the rook. That's exactly the same. And I guess that's all for this puzzle. Not so much, since there was only 3 pieces for red. Alright. Okay, no problem. Mm-hmm. So there's a lot of material for red, but I think there is only one solution. I haven't been able to find several. We could try to go for cannon double check, let's say here, but once the pawn is in the middle, there's not so much to do, because if you take back with the cannon, then that's not check. If you take with the rook, that's check, but there's nothing left to do. The other issue is that this cannon is already threatening the rook, so we need to find I would say another solution, and the very tricky move is to consider this this elephant, because as you can see, this elephant is able to threaten a piece in the fortress, and there's no way for blue to prevent a check, for example, in that case. So the idea is to bring the king to this spot. So we sacrifice the pawn, well, we take the pawn for the guard, and then we bring the rook, and now the king has a 0 square to go since it's locked because of the rook, and we finish with the elephant. And I think that's the only solution, and that was not so easy to find. Of course, bringing the elephant to this side is not working because there is the cannon. And I also thought about sacrificing the rook, but this elephant is not so useful, and there's like nothing anymore that is a shift. So yeah, this elephant, even if it's far from the fortress, they jump quite quickly, and here the key was to see this double move from the elephant, and after the idea to bring the king here comes naturally. But yeah, that was a nice puzzle. Again, a nice puzzle. I like the solution. Okay, but that's good to see the elephant, because it was the piece to consider, and after maybe work a bit more the idea how can I bring the king here. There is a detail I'm not sure about. I will have to check. I had the same idea, but maybe I'm wrong because of the king opposition. So here we have a cannon that threats to check if this cannon is out. Yeah, that's the same, Julien. I don't know how it behaves in case of checkmate. I think it won't work, so I don't have the solution. But sorry, that cannon is threatening, and we can do a double check. So that's a nice double check, but that's a double check with cannons, and the only solution is to bring the king here. And once the king is here, we have this pattern with a cannon already getting an influence here. So we bring the rook, and now, okay, that's not a checkmate because there is the opposition. That's what I wanted to check. So what else do we have? 9707 check. So that's forced move, and now And now I can bring the cannon here, because now the cannon controls both of those squares, and we simply finish with the rook. But now if rook takes in the middle, that won't work. I mean, we could do it directly, but if we take his king, the puzzle is not considered as solved. Because actually taking king is not like in Chinese chess, it's not forbidden, it just leads to point counting here in Korean chess. So no, you can't get it this way. But if, for example, you had a big material lead and you are not able to find a checkmate, then yeah, you can do those kind of sacrifice, even if you will lose like 13 points for 3 points. So that's you need to have like more than 10 points than your opponent to do those kind of sacrifice. So that was also a nice puzzle, because don't forget the diagonal mobility of the cannon within the fortress, and so controlling everything, and boom, checkmate. I like the triple pawn. Alright, checkmate 3. Okay, so here the king is in the center, maybe not so much threat, and for blue we can see that he has an elephant in the center of the fortress, and that's often very bad to have long range pieces in the center of the fortress, because they won't help defend and they will only block mobility. And what do we have for red? We have a rook potentially controlling this row. We have a cannon that may jump to the diagonal, but before that we have a knight that threatens to check if the rook moves. So the only way to provide check is to move the rooks here, because there's no other way to go. And there is a square that is better from the other. We could try to check here, but in that case he takes the cannon, and that is not checkmate because there is an elephant. Otherwise that would have been checkmate since the knight covers, but there is an elephant, and there's no way to get control of this row with a piece quickly. So red has nothing to do. Even there is the same elephant, so that's not the move. Actually we have like two solutions to finish right now. We could play, I would say, the safe and more logical idea. So that's to check and at the same time protect the cannon, so that the king has only one square to go. And right now the elephant is blocking this square and the knight is blocking this square, so the king is locked on this row, and we need to find a way to conclude. We won't bring back the rook because that would hide the knight threat, but we can use the diagonal mobility of the cannon supported by the rook that's after, so we simply need to remove the cannon no matter where, here. And that's checkmate because there's nothing to bring here and nowhere else to go. So that was the solution, bringing the cannon there and removing the cannon. We can take the rook, that doesn't change anymore. Oh, I launched the countdown by mistake. But that was the same solution. We could sacrifice the rook, he can take the cannon because it's on the way, and lay here, and that's over. So let's go for the next one, and we'll have a bit less time, but I think that still be okay. Here, be careful of the king position. Oops. Not so sure I found it actually. So moving the knight is forbidden because of the king opposition. So we may try to get some play with the cannon before, but the king has a lot of squares to go, so we need to analyze those situations. And that's, yeah. No, that's not working because of this square. So we can try to take here, but there's no possibility to check with the king. Oh no, we can check. So that's kind of sacrificing the knight, but we removed a defense, and right now we are able to conclude with the pawn. So the idea was to get the pawn to play, and I show you the variation where blue goes behind the pawn right here, and what's important to notice is that the elephant is also covering the pawn, so we can simply check with the knight, and that's actually a checkmate because all squares are controlled. So pawn takes, no matter where he goes, he could go to the middle. What's the finish in that case? That's to go with the cannon. Check, nothing to bring, not possible to take the cannon, so only one square left, and checkmate in the end. Alright, no, not so easy. Okay, I like this one. Okay, so here we have a king that is at the very last row of its fortress, and it's behind the pawn. So indeed it's vulnerable to rook attacks. The problem of 25-24 is that there is a knight. So he simply takes the knight and there's like not so much left. But since we don't have so much piece in the play, here this elephant, he won't be able to threaten any squares in the fortress even after, so we can consider that it's kind of useless in that case, so that leaves us with only those 3 pieces to play. And the other problem is that if, for example, the king is there and we can check with the rook, blue can bring a lot of pieces to the middle and gain a lot of tempo, so we won't be able to achieve. So we need to find something that allows the rook to play and at the same time prevents blue from bringing pieces. So the idea is to sacrifice the pawn, and we use the fact that the guard is blocking the general, and now the king is blocked on the is on the rook's column. For example, if we had a cannon in that spot, that would be checkmate, but that's not the case. And we have 2 solutions now. We can bring the knight to this place, and that will provide a double check with the rook and the knight. But there is only one square that will work. If we try this one, then the king goes here, and we are not able to finish. We could try this, but that won't work. But if we go the other side, then we get that the knight protects this square and this square, so we can checkmate by bringing the rook. And if the king went to this side, then our knight was not covering here, but this guard was blocking the king. So there was only one solution: bring the king to the central column, bring the knight to the place where there is space, and finish with the rook here. And that was a nice puzzle. Okay. So same idea as before, we can see the king is on the 8th row, so it will be quite vulnerable to attacks from this side, especially with rooks or cannon. But we can try this. 77, 87. Let's check. How can we continue this? We could go for pawn check, supported by the rook, but the cannon is hanging, and here there's no way to find a checkmate in one. Better to do, instead of attacking from this flank is to attack from this one. So check, only one move forced. We can see that we have a knight here that is providing check if we move the rook. We cannot, if this square was already protected, that would be checkmate because of double check, but that's not the case. So we can simply take the knight. No. Okay, I messed up this one. Completely. Yeah. We sacrificed the rook here, so that was double check, so he was forced to take. And now we can finish with the pawn, and that's a nice checkmate because the knight is covering this escape square, and the pawn is covering the two other one, and the knight is protecting the pawn. So removing, using the double check to lure the king to 85, and then checkmate with the pawn. What I had in mind at the beginning was to go here so that the king would go back there and then checkmate with the rook, but if the king goes back here, that's the same. He can take the cannon and there's no checkmate in that position. So you say plus 0103. That's going with the rook, and then knight check. But the problem of knight check is that he could also have gone for bringing the guard to avoid, and that would have led to king opposition, so he would have to find something. And here there's no way to find the checkmate because the knight here is covering, so that won't be the working idea. The strong idea is to consider is to consider the rook, the pawn, and the cannon. For example, if we remove the pawn, then the cannon here blocks those squares, so if this pawn is out like this, then the king is blocked on that row, and we will be able to simply push the king to the very corner and finish. So that's a nice idea to allow the cannon to get some influence, and then use the rook to push the pawn, and the king will be cornered sooner or later. But I agree that may not have been the most intuitive idea. Something like this would seem to be more natural, but once you have managed this, there's not so much to do, because yeah, go with the rook. So not so easy to find, but once you get the idea, yeah, it's way more logical. That's to get the cannon and block. Alright, let's see for this one. Nobody in the fortress. Some knights. Okay, here the first move is not so hard to find, but the continuation needs to calculate a bit what's the ideas. So if we go for something with the rook, then there's only those 3 squares, and that simply leads to giving up the rook. Even if we try the discovery, there's like nothing to do. The elephant is too far for trying something. So the only idea that comes to mind is to bring the pawn. The first thing to notice is that this pawn is not protected, but if the king took the pawn, then simply rook checkmate. Rook close to the king, and the rook is protected, so that would lead to checkmate. So that's why blue doesn't took the pawn, and he went for taking this pawn in the corner. And here we need to find a checkmate in 2, and we can use the fact that the fortress is very empty and the rook has now full control, so we can checkmate here or to the corner. That's exactly the same. So that was one variation, and there was another one. Check. The king could have gone here, and in that case we have only one possibility two possibilities to finish. We could try to go for pawn check, and the king has 1 square, and now those are controlled, so we simply need to, for example, bring the rook, but that's not checkmate because the cannon can come back. So that's not the solution, but the solution is to indeed control this square, but with the knight, and we could this with knight here or knight here. That would have been exactly the same. And right now the king has to take the pawn, and right now that's possible to conclude like this because there is 2 pieces, so the cannon cannot protect the king and come back. So yeah, those were the variation of this one. Alright, so this one is not so easy. Take your time to calculate how it works. So again, there was a little trap in this one, because this cannon is like hanging, and that seems to be a very solid move to simply dig and take with the rook. But we can see what it does. So rook takes cannon. The best move blue has to do is to bring back the guard. And here we need to find a checkmate in 2 moves, and we won't be able to achieve that. We can take because we don't have the majority. There's the rook, there's the king. We could try to go for the knight, so check, but here we need to find checkmate in 1. If we bring the rook, that's not working. If we bring the pawn, there's still 1 square, so we are lost here. So we need to find another solution. But what is also important to consider is that if we move the rook, then that's check. So the rook is pinned for red. As you can see, the right file is really blocked, and even this one is kind of blocked. I mean, those 2 squares are already controlled by the pawn, this pawn, and the rook. So we could try to force the king to go here and kind of checkmate with the file. And the idea is indeed to extract the king to the left, and we could think here that that would be checkmate because there's nothing to bring, there's nowhere else to go. But as we said before, the rook is pinned, so there's no way to move. But we can simply invest a move to remove the cannon with the knight, and that's check. So now this guard is pinned because of the knight, this square is taken because of the knight, and we simply bring the rook, and there's no... blue has no the right to bring the guard, and there's nowhere else to go. So that seems to be very convenient, and indeed it's winning, but that's losing the game actually. So my idea, was to see that those 2 columns were kind of blocked, and try to see if I could file checkmate like this. And once you consider the cannon, you remove the cannon, and after you're fine to finish. Again, that was an interesting problem. Oh, I forgot the timer. So we will stop this puzzle when 20 seconds are remaining because we forgot to launch it. Alright, so again, not an easy one because there's a lot of things that seems to be interesting. Maybe the cannon, we have this discovery, we have that rook controlling a lot. But we need to play in the good order. 72, 75. That would check indeed, but there is a rook, so we won't do so much with that, sadly. We could try something else, for example, like bringing the cannon check, and now there's this elephant, and no, sorry, maybe this is better, because if there is the elephant, maybe we could take using the support of the cannon. But here there's not so much to do. We could try to sacrifice the rook and finish, but there's the elephant, so there's nothing. The discovery won't be working here. We need to find an extra step before that. What we can see is that the king here has 0 mobility, and we have again a great elephant that can jump right into the game, like this. And that's elephant check. And there is only 2 moves for blue. That's to bring the rook here or bring the rook there. But in both cases, the rook is pinned right now. So what we need to do is to simply remove the cannon. And now we have the cannon and the rook that are having support. So that's checkmate. If we move the cannon somewhere else, that wouldn't have worked because we take and the king can take and the cannon has nothing to jump over. So bring the elephant to neutralize the rook, and then use the cannon and the rook to finish because they cooperate well. And I show you the variation that could have been played. Check, that's to bring the rook here, but that's the same problem. Check, there's only 1 move left since that's pinned, so that's bringing the elephant, and here we can simply take it and there's nothing to do since everything is protected or pinned. And that's all for this one. That was also kind of tricky. The problems are better this week than they were last time. Alright, so here we have a very empty fortress. Our king is safe, so no problems for this. And a lot of pawns that are controlling those squares for now. So in that case, I try to think: is there a way for me to bring a cannon on the rook to use this file? Because since the king is on the last row, there's nothing to bring. But here we won't be able to find a cannon move to go here, or a rook, because we don't have rooks. So we'll try something different, and we can see that's a big majority of pawn, and we can simply like brute force the way. So check. And now there's an elephant, but we have a lot of pressure to that square, so we simply bring a pawn, elephant takes, and pawn checkmate, because the 2 pawns covers the whole fortress. It was just simply digging in strength with the pawns. Alright, so here a lot of influences, for example this elephant, the cannon, the rook here, this one that may go, but we need to figure out how we can actually use this. But before that I will show you something quite funny. So check, and here if we bring back the pawn, that's a triple check. Check with the pawn, check with the elephant, and check with the cannon, and that's something you cannot do at Western chess. So yeah, that was just for the fun. But if we really bring the pawn here, sadly there's nothing else than the pawn that we can put here. So we won't find a way to conclude this properly. Maybe we can try to bring the pawn, check, that's double check, and then checkmate, but that's 4 move and not 3. So we need to find something else. What do we have? We have a knight here that is controlling this square. We have an elephant that is controlling the center. So if we are able to attack from this side, then we will have a row checkmate. So we simply take the knight, and then we sacrifice the rook, and we use the fact that those squares are already controlled by our pieces, and we finish with this rook, and that actually does the job very well. Maybe there was another solution, but I haven't been able to find. But since there is a lot of pieces, that yeah, that could be reasonable to think that there is something else. But whatever is done, that blocks the elephant, maybe going this way to check with the elephant, but no, I think there was only one solution in that case. Alright, so again a very empty fortress for both players. Okay, this one is quite funny and classic at the same time. I would go for it like directly because there is not so much to say about it. Yeah, 97, 96, that's the idea, because those knights are too far from reaching the interesting place. The only interesting move would have been this, but there is the pawn that would take the knight. This rook may enter the game, but still blue can simply bring a rook and gain a lot of tempo. So the only piece that we can count on are those three pieces, and we cannot move the elephant because that would lead to king opposition. So we simply bring the rook, check, the move is forced, and now we could try to go with the cannon, but that would lead the king to go to the center and we would have been stuck here. So before that, that's better to bring back the rook, controlling all of these squares and protecting the elephant. So right now we simply need to jump with the cannon, and that's checkmate because there's no way to go, and taking the elephant is not an option. We have the other rook for the center. Yeah, I see what you mean, but that won't be working. Like, check, but oh yeah, there's the cannon, but there was also a rook here. So no, that rook you cannot count on it actually. Okay, this one is not really interesting. There is an idea to find, and it simply takes 3 moves to execute it because of the opponent's pieces, but nothing fancy here. Hello, Cal. Alright, so what's to consider here is simply that this pawn is protecting the center, so if we are able to bring the rook here, since there's no defense for blue, then that's directly checkmate. And the way to bring the rook is to take the elephant, the cannon goes back, the king goes here, and the rook goes finally to the center. I'm not sure there was something else actually. This application here is not Kakao. That's an application. I may have the link in the description, not in of that stream, but of previous streams. But for Kakao, you need to sign up to the app. But for this one, since that's only puzzles, it's simply free on the Google Play. So no other idea here. Take, and finish. We got finished with the pawn actually. Uh, 87, 86. To play with other players, no, you don't. You can directly create an account on Kakao Changi. There is also an internet site named PyChess where you can play people, but if you want to play on Kakao Changi, you can directly create your account within the application. Kakao is a big thing in Korea, that it's the equivalent of WhatsApp, like Kakao Talk, and there are Kakao account for everything. But back to this problem, the king here has like 0 mobility. We have the rook with good control, and we may have an elephant here, but the problem of the elephant is that there is here also an elephant that may take it. We have a cannon and a lot of pressure here, so let's remove some pressure. And here I think the best is to bring the cannon and then bring the pawn to checkmate, because that was not such an easy idea to find, because here we use the fact that the knight is actually covering the pawn. So that was good to find the idea with the elephant, for example, take to free the elephant, and here the king has 0 square and go with the elephant, but the problem is that the elephant is controlling. We could have tried something else like check here, so now the elephant does not control our elephant. We could check, but the rook goes here and we need to find a checkmate in one move, and I doubt that there is one, that there's no way to conclude here. So we could try something else, but there's nothing to see here. And that's all for this puzzle. Okay, and this time no rook for red. Check, check, checkmate. Okay. That's puzzle number 77, and we'll stop at puzzle 80. Yeah, I also got the same move. What's good to notice is that those cannon, they like do nothing, and better than that, nothing can be brought by blue, and the cannon is not threatened. So if we bring a piece, the king has to go somewhere else. So we will try to control those 3 squares, since this will be very blocked. And we already have the elephant having an influence here, so we bring the pawn. That's one way. The king cannot take the knight because that was double check with the cannon. Now we bring the pawn to the middle, and the king is forced to go back. And right now we simply need to bring a piece in the center, which is not the pawn. We can do this with the elephant or with the knight. That's exactly the same. So use the pawn to control the middle file and finish by the same idea with the cannon, and that works because the cannon is very free. Alright, puzzle number 78. Not so much PCs on the board, so the solution may be found quickly. And yeah, that's good to know how to solve those problems with not so much material. And here there is only one solution, and it's quite elegant, quite fancy. Alright, so most of the action is on the right side of the fortress for blue. And this knight, okay, he may threaten those squares, but that will be a bit too far from the action. And that gives us the idea more to focus only on the elephant and the rook. And what we have is a discovery check if the rook moves. So we can go wherever we want, basically. In a game, maybe if you are not confident by finding the checkmate, the best idea is to simply check like this, take the rook, and then I don't know, play it like this, and you have a winning endgame because you are able to gain a rook. But here we are looking for a checkmate, and we are sure that one exists. We could try to go here. That seems nice because that covers everything, and also the elephant checks, but blue can stop the check by the rook. And here, if we had a knight here, we could jump and checkmate because there's no mobility, but there's not so much way to attack. We could try this, and here we are completely blocked. There's nothing else to do. The idea will be to isolate the king from the guard, and that's by doing double check. So there's only one move, and now we bring the rook to that very end. The king is blocked because he cannot go back since there's an elephant, and the only move is to bring the rook. And now we have the very nice move, rook diagonal, and that's checkmate because the rook is actually blocking the king. So yeah, very instructive one, how to finish in that position. And here was the solution, and it was due that this guard was in an awkward position at the beginning of the combination. And we are up to puzzle 79, and that will be only one more after this one. A lot of material for red. I wouldn't be surprised that there is a few solutions. So 7183 check. So that's coming in with the knight, and we have a very good control on this central square. And are we able to conclude this way? Not sure. Because we can take, that's forced since the elephant is controlling here, and if we go here then that's not checkmate, so we could try this, and that's forcing here, but right now even if we double check, no, there's the king opposition, so that won't be good, and we could try this, but that's not. So bringing the knight won't be working actually. There is a free rook here that we can try to take the rook. And now is there a way to conclude? Check. And what's bothering me is that if the king goes there, then that's check. Oh yeah, we can simply sacrifice. We have the knight, we have the pawn. So the king is blocked on this row and we can finish. But that wasn't my idea at the beginning. That was check, 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 and checkmate. But that's in 4 moves. So I miscalculated and I found it differently. Is there something else to try with the elephant? Not sure. So take, sacrifice because that's blocked on this row, and if he doesn't take the rook, then it's blocked on this row, and we finish with the rook, or even with the pawn, because this square is controlled. So yeah, let's finish with this last puzzle. Alright, so 66, 86. In Korean chess, the opposition of kings is not prevented. It's just like that if there is a king opposition for more than one move, then it proceeds to stop the game. In some casual rules, that's a draw. In tournament rules, that's counting the point because each piece worth some point. So that's not forbidden to go to the same square, to the same file where the opponent king is, but that leads to draw, and in this application that leads to losing the solution of the problem. So now 66, 86 is not working. There is a discovery check here that may be interesting, but I looked it and I didn't found a way to conclude. Better to do is to go with this rook, and now we simply use the power we have with the two rook in the fortress. And as we know, if there is a square not protected and we are next to the king, then that's checkmate. With the rook they are supported. And just before, yeah, when we check here, the king cannot go there because the pawn is threatening, and the king cannot go take the pawn because the guard is the rook is holding. But if we go with this rook, then there's no way to finish. So it's important to take with this one to have the support on the row. And yeah, just to finish like this. Alright, so we did finish this series to puzzle 80, and that stops at puzzle 100. So maybe next week or in 2 weeks we'll be finishing that puzzle series, and after that I don't know what we'll be doing, not defined yet. So I hope you enjoyed, and I see you next Friday for the classic Road to 9 Dan series. Have a nice evening, and see you soon. Bye.